I'm Jono. Steam versus Heroic. Let's see who wins.
The dominant platform says you do not own your games. The launcher that brings other stores to that platform's own hardware was never given official access to the systems it connects to. Steam and Heroic Games. Launcher. One is a 17 billion revenue platform with over 41 million concurrent users, a subscriber agreement that says licensed not sold, and approximately 100 games removed in July 2025 because a payment processor changed its content policy. The other is a volunteer-built open-source tool that breaks whenever a third-party store changes its authentication. They are not competitors. Steam is the center of gravity for the industry. Heroic is the adapter that lets users of the alternative operating system bring their other libraries into the ecosystem Steam's own hardware created. The relationship between them is the relationship between a platform and the community tool built to work around its gaps. Steam launched in September 2003 as a patch distribution system that players resented being forced to use. Gabe Newell and Mike Harrington founded the company behind it in 1996. Every major release from the studio required the client. Third-party publishers followed the audience. A mandatory update tool became a storefront, then a social network, then a platform holding approximately 70 to 75% of all digital game distribution. The corporate structure has no managers and no hierarchy. Approximately 360 employees run the platform. Support is notoriously unresponsive, a structural consequence of nobody being clearly responsible for fixing it. The subscriber agreement is explicit: licensed, not sold, no title or ownership. The platform may discontinue access at its sole discretion. In July 2025, approximately 100 adult games were removed because a payment processor changed its content policy. 80,000 people signed a petition. The games stayed removed. The refund window for titles purchased years earlier had closed. In May 2025, claims of an 89 million record data breach spread before the company clarified that no platform systems were compromised. The data consisted of old authentication logs from a third-party provider. The anti-cheat system applies permanent bans with no meaningful review and no appeal. The legal challenges are active across multiple jurisdictions, including a 656 million class action in the United Kingdom, alleging that the 30% commission constitutes abuse of market dominance. The refund policy within the 2-hour and 14-day window remains the most consumer-friendly in the industry. The compatibility layer investment that makes titles designed for one operating system run on another is the most significant infrastructure investment in the industry in the 2020s. The handheld hardware that shipped in 2022 made the alternative operating system viable for mainstream gaming and created the conditions that made community tools like the one in this comparison necessary and valuable. Heroic Games Launcher was created by Flavio Lima as a graphical interface for a command line tool that reverse-engineered one store's authentication and download protocols. The project grew to support 3 additional stores. Version 2.19 shipped in January 2026. The license is open source. Funding comes from voluntary donations. There is no venture capital and no commercial arrangement with any of the stores the launcher accesses. The dependency problem is structural. Every store integration relies on unofficial access. When a store changes how authentication works, how sessions are handled, or how downloads are served, the integration breaks. In January 2024, Amazon login stopped working. The fix required deleting configuration files, which meant the launcher no longer recognized installed games. In December 2023, an entire library of games from one store disappeared after an update and a lapsed session. In April 2024, cloud save downloads for a specific title failed even when forced. In May 2025, the launcher stopped launching games on the handheld hardware altogether, requiring a full reinstall. The error messages throughout these incidents provide no useful diagnostic information. Users cannot tell whether the problem is the launcher, the compatibility layer, the game, or the store. The community described the launcher in February 2024 as having become unreliable, with one commenter suggesting abandoning it entirely. The project remains actively maintained, and the community's assessment after the frustration passes is consistent. It is the best available tool for the specific problem it solves. The comparison between these two tools is not a feature comparison, it is a relationship map. Steam created the ecosystem that made the alternative operating system viable for mainstream gaming. The handheld hardware shipped in 2022. The compatibility layer made most titles designed for the dominant operating system run on the alternative one. Users of that alternative operating system then wanted their libraries from other stores in the same environment. Heroic filled that gap. The ownership argument connects the two tools directly. Steam's subscriber agreement says licensed, not sold. One of the stores that Heroic supports sells games without copy protection. Playing those titles through Heroic on the alternative operating system means accessing games the user can argue they actually own, without the dominant platform's contract language. The combination of the copy protection-free store, the open source launcher, and the handheld hardware is the closest thing to genuine game ownership in mainstream digital gaming. Steam provides the platform, the hardware, and the compatibility layer. Heroic provides access to the libraries that Steam does not serve. The dominant platform's investment in the alternative operating system created the conditions for the open source tool to exist. The open source tool fills the gaps that the dominant platform left. Neither replaces the other. The platform without the adapter leaves non-Steam libraries inaccessible on its own hardware. The adapter without the platform has no ecosystem to operate within. The community's framing is precise. Steam is the platform. Heroic is the adapter. The community built the adapter because the platform created the ecosystem and did not cover all of it. If you are a user of the dominant operating system and you buy games primarily through one storefront, Steam is the only platform in this comparison you need. The library is the largest. The community features are the most developed. The refund policy is the most generous within its window. The compatibility layer investment and the handheld hardware are transforming how games run across operating systems. Accept the subscriber agreement's terms, accept that licensed means not owned, accept that game removals, account bans, and theoretical platform shutdown are all permitted by the contract you agreed to when you created your account. If you use the alternative operating system or the handheld hardware and you have libraries from stores that do not provide an official client for that operating system, Heroic Games Launcher is the best available tool for bringing those libraries into the same environment. Accept that the launcher will break approximately once a year because a store changes its authentication or endpoints. Accept that the fixed timeline depends on volunteers. Keep save files backed up outside the cloud synchronization system because save sync that silently fails is the most consequential failure mode. If you want the closest thing to genuine game ownership available in mainstream digital gaming, the combination of the copy protection free store, the open source launcher, and the handheld hardware is the path. The store sells games without copy protection. The launcher makes them accessible on the alternative operating system. The handheld hardware runs that operating system natively. The subscriber agreement of the dominant platform does not apply to games purchased from the copy protection free store and launched through the open source tool. The license language that says you never owned your games does not reach the games you bought from a store that explicitly sells you ownership. The dominant platform is the center of gravity. The open source launcher is the adapter. The platform created the ecosystem. The adapter fills its gaps. The platform says licensed, not sold. The adapter connects you to a store that says sold and means it. The relationship between them is the defining dynamic of this comparison, and understanding it is the reason this series exists.